We have met with Rob and Steven multiple times. A lot of you probably recognize them. They came in and they did one-on-one interviews with y'all. We sent out a survey to y'all that we got really good responses from. I haven't even seen the responses, but they've seen them, they've analyzed them, and they've put together some really good activities, group discussions for us to work through on these issues and concerns that we have. So let's give a round of applause to them. All right.
Thank you. One of the things that's in the survey is the 7 mission components that you all identified. And one of the things that's most powerful and related to what Tom was sharing has to do with treating everyone with dignity, respect, and consideration. So how many of you think that that's a good thing, that we ought to treat everyone with dignity? All right. Now be honest, how many of you think everyone experiences being treated with dignity? Not so much. Well, that's what the survey showed. About 50% of you think that, from moderate to high performance on that. And about 50% not so much. So there's room for improvement. 90% of you think you're high on that. So, 10% think you're high on that. 90% obviously think there's a place for improvement. So that's what we want to do today, is give you some practical tools for moving forward in those areas, because that's part of what the process is that we're going to be sharing with you today. And just to give you more detail from the survey, of those who identified themselves as leaders of customer service, there were about 45% that measured on the moderate performance to high performance. On the non-customer service, a little higher, 57% from moderate to high. But everybody, I think, believes that that's something you could do better at. And what would it be like if we did better at each one? What does that mean to do better? I mean, you think about it, being considerate is being considerate of people's ideas, of their opinions, right? And being respectful when we have differences. And then really being considerate of others when we have to move in some new direction, because that's what we want to be able to do, is when you're correcting someone as a leader, which is something you have to do from time to time, you want to do it in a way that they feel still respected in that process. And a lot of us grew up in families where when there was a conflict, we did not end up closer. True? So we come to a place without those conflict resolution techniques, and that's something we want to kind of give you some skill in that to move forward so that you can be the leader people want to follow. Isn't that a good goal? And I think the more people experience this respect, consideration, and dignity from you, the more that they're going to want to work with you. It's just kind of common sense. Everybody in agreement?
Yes. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Because what we have is an idea of what we call shared leadership. And that's where you actually involve the people who report to you in solving problems, in making decisions, in sharing the responsibility for being successful. And that's a different model for leadership, where we balance our authority with collaboration. How we do that more effectively, in more detailed way, is part of what we want to model for you today. We want to help you experience that as we move forward in helping you understand that it's inevitable everyone's going to have differences. You agree with that? Or we're going to disagree? It's how we handle that as leaders that's kind of the hallmark of our talent and skill. How do we handle the disagreements with others? And most of us are not that skilled in that. We're going to help you with that.
What we do is we take principles of the martial arts and apply them to communication skills to show you how to reduce somebody else's resistance to your point of view. If you put a whole bunch of people in a room together with who have different jobs, different responsibilities, different needs. Now, if we all had unlimited resources, there'd be no problem if we had disagreements, because we can still get everything done. Never going to have unlimited time and resources. So, as Rob said, it's inevitable that we'll have disagreements. And just as he was saying, that most people grew up in families in which whenever there was a disagreement, we didn't end up closer as a result of that experience. We ended up further apart. It was uncomfortable. So today, for most people, whenever they are even expecting a disagreement. They're expecting that discomfort. So they got the defenses up. And for some people, the best defense is a good offense. So they're swinging before anything even happens. And I don't know, have you ever had this experience before where you're like practicing an argument with somebody before you actually have the argument with them? You go through this, what I'm going to say, what they're going to say, what I'm, it's like you don't even, they're not even really there, but you've got them sat down in front of you, you're giving them a piece of your mind, and you're going through this whole thing back and forth, and you can go through this whole conversation and get really upset. And there's nobody there. See, technically, it's a fantasy, but it feels real. And when we talk about this stuff in relation to stress management, we say your body doesn't know the difference between what your mind typically imagines and what actually happens. So even if the person isn't there, it feels real. And then after I'm finished with that, I kind of carry it around in the back of my mind. And I'm driving to work, I'm thinking, oh, I got to do that jerk when I get into the office. Or I'm walking down the hallway and I see him, I just kind of avoid their glance because I don't want to deal with it until finally, there she is. But I know what Tam's thinking because I've already had this conversation. And all she has to do is say that one thing that I knew she was going to say. Or get that look on her face that she always gets when she's in one of those moods, and everybody who works with her knows what that's like. And as soon as she does that, I go, I knew you were going to do that. And I beat her with what I know is right, my opinion. Now, when I'm doing this, I can't really see what she's doing. I don't really hear what she's saying. This becomes more real to me than what's actually happening in the room. And I go off thinking, yeah, I know. And I still have this thought no matter what she does. Does this sound familiar? You have to start to become aware of this stuff that's going on in the back of your mind. We all have these unconscious habits that add more tension and stress just as a result of unconscious thoughts and patterns from our past. I've got to become aware of this stuff. I've got to know that this is me, this is not the other person, before I can set it down. When I set it down, I can turn to deal with the real differences, the real disagreements, not the ones that I'm kind of making up. And it's a lot easier said than done. So, I might just be able to mention this to you, but it doesn't mean you're going to stop doing this. Just because I pointed out you got a chair on your back, you're still going to have one.